Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our live webinar tonight. I hope you can see me. I hope you can hear me. It's wonderful to have you join us. I can see loads of you sitting there already, so fantastic to see so many people coming along for our live broadcast. For those of you who are linked to me online, you'll know that I've had a bit of an internet nightmare over the last 2-3 days. So I want to give a huge shout out to my accountants because I'm sitting in their boardroom at the moment doing this webinar. So thank you to CV Reed in Dorchester. If anyone needs a good accountant, they're the place to go. So my name's Lorraine Dahlmeyer. I am the director of Formula Botanica. I hope you've heard of us. We're the world's leading online organic cosmetic science school. We teach online courses for organic skincare entrepreneurs who want to start their own business. And we've got over 1,200 students in 83 countries now. We teach 11 different courses and programs. And if you haven't seen us before, come and check out our website at www.formulabotanica.com. Now we're running this free webinar series over the next 2 months. We've got another 3 guest speakers after this one, and I will introduce our very special guest speaker in a bit. We're running this beauty business webinar series for people who want to start or grow their own organic or any skincare business, in fact. So last webinar, 2 weeks ago, we had Rachel Pontillo here talking about how to formulate for different skin types. Tonight, we've got Rachel Whittaker here who's going to be talking about inventory management and how to scale up your business to sell to retailers, which I know a lot of you are very interested in. And the next few webinars, we're going to be talking about finding your niche, how to appeal to your target audience, and also how to comply with essential oil legislation all around the world. So make sure you join in for those, and the invites will be coming out for those over email in the coming weeks. Right, a few housekeeping notes. There will be a replay. It will be sent out this week, maybe not tomorrow given my internet, so please be patient with us. There will be a Q&A at the end as well, where you'll be able to ask questions of Rachel. You have a question box. I'm not sure which side of the screen it's on, hopefully that one, I think. So keep the questions coming throughout the webinar. I'll be reading them and I'll be posting them to Rachel at the end. So yes, get in there early because it's first come, first served, and we'll obviously try and answer as many as we can. There's a chat box as well, so come and chat with us. I'll be on there during Rachel's presentation, so looking forward to chat with all of you. Let's see what else. Rachel's going to have a very special offer, so make sure you stay on the end until the end for that. And finally, this week, Formula Botanica is opening enrollment again for our flagship training program, our International Organic Skincare Entrepreneur Program, which we only open for enrollment twice a year for 1 week. So this is really exclusive, and we offer all 8 of our courses in this package for 30% discount. So it's a fantastic offer. We open on Thursday for enrollment. If you haven't registered already for the free video training series we've been giving away, head over to launch.formulabotanica.com. I'll type that in the chat box in a minute and come and watch. And I haven't announced this publicly yet, so this is an exclusive, but next year we're putting all of our prices up. So this will be the last time it's available at this low price of £1,199, which is about $1,850 US. Next year it will be £1,600. So this is the last time you can get it for that price. Right, let's get started. I'd like to introduce Rachel Whittaker to you. Rachel has been in the global beauty business for 13 years now, and her specialism is logistics management. And she's worked with lots of big brands, in particular helping them sell to retailers and working with retailers, which I think is her speciality. So we're very fortunate that she's come to talk to us this evening about how to scale up your business when you're going to sell to retailers. Rachel runs a fabulous group on Facebook called Destination Beauty Brand. I'm in it as well, so make sure you head over there and join. And she's just set up her Beauty Brand School for Success, which I'm hoping she'll tell us a little bit more about. So I'm going to hand over to Rachel now. I'll be back at the end. I'll be here, so just give me a shout during the webinar if you need any help. See you later.
Hi there, guys. Nice to meet you all. Just bringing up my presentation for you. Well, thank you very much. What an introduction. I hope I'm going to live up to that. Thank you very, very much for inviting me to come along today and do this webinar. We are going to be looking at beauty business inventory management today. with a real focus on making sure that you're ready to scale up and supply retail. So really looking at what the retailers need to know about your inventory and making sure you are ready to go. But before we go too much further, I just wanted to introduce myself in a little bit more detail. As Lorraine very kindly said, I've been in beauty logistics now for over 13 years. I used to work as a senior manager for a third-party warehouse that specialised in working just with beauty brands, and I did that for 12 years. And during that time I had the real privilege of managing the UK and the international logistics for quite a lot of major brands like PZ Cussons, Charles Worthington and Saint-Tropez. And I also used to do a lot of the management of the contract packing of gifts for companies like Boots and The Body Shop and Coty Prestige. One of the things I also did was the warehouse that I worked for specialised in helping start-up brands, which was where I got my love of working with start-up beauty brands from. And that's why about a year ago I left my job as a senior manager and launched Zest Consulting, which is my own company. And I now work with beauty brands of all shapes and all sizes on all manner of weird and wonderful logistics projects. But my main passion that underlies everything that I do in my business is the fact that I absolutely love to work up with startup, niche and indie beauty brands. I really, really love this. You guys are the most amazing people to work with. You are so passionate. What you're doing is so exciting. You're so creative. It's a real motivating place to work. It's always fresh, it's always lively, I'm constantly being challenged and I learn so much from it. So as well as running Zest Consulting, I also have two other businesses which I work with. One of them is Destination Beauty Brand, and I'm sure some of my guys are on this webinar with us tonight. Destination Beauty Brand is just an interactive Facebook group which is set up to help start up and developing beauty brands, and there's a whole load of us in there and we have miles and miles and loads of fun. We bounce ideas off each other, we keep up to date with the latest trends in the industry. We've got quite a few experts that belong to the group and they're available to answer any questions. And you can see the Facebook address on the page now, so make a note of it, come and join us, the more the merrier please. And the other business that I help out with is the Beauty Brand School for Success. And the Beauty Brand School for Success is an online beauty school which helps you to learn the skills to develop your beauty brand. Now that's nothing to do with the formulating or anything like that. This is really focusing on the business skills of how you grow your beauty brand. And what the Beauty Brand School for Success does is it makes tutorials available to you, bite-sized tutorials which look at individual skills that you might need to develop your brand. And you buy those tutorials as and when you want them. So it's not a course that you enroll in or something that you invest a lot of money in up front. Just come along to the School for Success address at the bottom of the page, have a browse through our tutorials, and if there's anything there, you can buy it and learn that skill. And we'll be adding more tutorials as time goes on. Okay, back to the matter in hand then. We're here today to talk about inventory management. So first of all, what is inventory management? And for me, it's two things. It's the overseeing and controlling of your ordering and storage, which is fairly simple and straightforward. But there's another level to inventory management that a lot of people don't do, and that's actually understanding your inventory, really getting to grips with how your inventory is made up. Now, inventory management could be dull, and it is a bit dull. It's full of numbers and it's full of data and it's all about recording things methodically. And as entrepreneurs, that's probably something we don't really like, but we really, really have to get to grips with it. So I'm quickly going to tell you why you should stay on the rest of this webinar and wade through inventory management, because there are some really good benefits. Firstly, a good inventory management is going to systemize your operation. And we all know that if we systemize something, we can delegate it, we can teach someone else to do it, and we can get rid of it as our own responsibility. So we can create some time for ourselves to focus on all those bits of your business that are far more interesting and that you're actually far better at. But what inventory management also does is it can provide you with a real confidence when you talk to retailers. If you know your inventory inside out and back to front, then that gives you some real confidence that you can answer questions. And that's going to make you look professional, organised and experienced when you're in a pitch. So we're going to look at a few things today in more detail. First of all, we're going to wade through understanding your inventory and what you need to understand and record about your inventory, and we're going to look at how that's going to add some real value to your business. We're going to have a look at options that are available to you to systemize your inventory management and why that's going to add some value to your business. Then I've got a little offer at the end, and as Lorraine said, there's going to be plenty of time for questions. Before we go any further, there's just a couple of bits of terminology I want to make sure that we've all got straight, because all of you are going to be at different phases within your business, and so some of you might be aware of things and some of you won't. So when you make the decision to target retail, the shape of your business is going to change. There's no way that you'll be able to supply the volume and the demands of manufacturing if you're doing that, still making your own product by yourself. And it's absolutely impossible to manage the logistics of supplying retail if you're doing it yourself as well. So when you make the commitment to retail, you're going to have to start to look to partner up with a manufacturer to help you produce the volumes, and a warehouse who will help with your inventory management, and they'll do your logistics for you. Now also, when you scale up and look at retail, the way your product is packaged is going to change. For those of you who are just selling to independent retailers at the moment or selling through your web shop, you're probably looking at your products and they're just individual units. But individual units don't travel well through the retail supply chain. They're going to get damaged, they're going to get lost, or they're going to get broken. So what you do when you go into retail is you have to package those individual units into outer cases. And they're effectively brown cardboard boxes. And for each stock line that you produce, you've got a standard box size, be it 6 or 12. And putting your product in those boxes just makes it more easier to store and transit. And then in addition to that, to make it even easier for your product to move through the supply chain, those brown boxes are stacked onto pallets. So there's just a little bit of terminology that hopefully now means we're all on the same page. Okay, so let's get stuck into that nitty-gritty. So first of all, we're going to look at understanding your inventory. And there are 7 key pieces of data that you need to start thinking about and recording so you're ready to go to retailers. And what I'd say very quickly is inventory management is a lot of numbers and it is a lot of data, so do it systematically. Don't suddenly think you're going to do it and go back and try and collate it for your whole product range. Put it together as you grow your brand and grow your products, and then you're always staying on top of it. So the 7 pieces of data that you need are going to be product details, which are basic things like stock code, whether your product is a dangerous good, barcodes, batch codes and shelf life, product dimensions, pallet specifications and environmental details. And we're going to whiz through all of those in a little bit more detail now. So first of all, product details. These are the things which make each of your products unique and which help as a reference. So the first thing you need is a stock code, and a stock code is a unique reference for each of your products. On the screen I've got a product from a fictional range of beauty products called Radiant, and you're looking at their dynamic cleanser. So that product code, that stock code is RAD001. The next product that Radiant roll out might be a bubble bath, and it might be called stock code RAD002. You get where I'm going. It's pretty easy stuff. Stock description is the next thing you need, And this is exactly what your product is. So in this case, it's the Radiant Dynamic Cleanser. If it was a strawberry bubble bath, we'd make sure that we include the flavour, the strawberry, in the description. And if your products are aftershaves or perfumes or EDTs, make sure you include the fragrance in your stock description as well. And finally, on product details, the size. Have you got a 150ml product or a 30ml product? Just make sure you've got that on record. Dangerous goods. Now, don't panic. I can hear people quaking already. Straight off the bat, dangerous goods are not a problem. If you have a dangerous good in your inventory, it is not a bad thing and you mustn't panic. It's not going to put retailers off buying your product, and it's not going to put consumers off buying your product. All you need to know is that you've got a dangerous good and that you need a material safety data sheet on that dangerous good. And this is where your manufacturer that you're going to work with, because you're scaling up for retail, is going to help you. They're going to be able to tell you what's dangerous good, and they're going to be able to provide you with that material safety data sheet. But in general, this isn't an exhaustive list, but in general within the beauty industry, dangerous goods are things that are packaged in aerosols, items that contain bleaches and peroxides, so things like hair dyes, things that contain ethanol, and I'm not a formulator and I don't really know ingredients very well, but I think ethanol is in nail varnish and nail varnish remover, and then perfumes, EDTs, aftershaves, all things that are kind of flammable liquids come into the dangerous goods category. But it's not a big deal, so you don't need to panic if you've got one. You just need to know you've got one and have that material safety data sheet. Your manufacturer and your warehouse will do everything that they need to do to manage those goods effectively. Barcodes. Wow, this could be a webinar in itself. So I'm going to keep this really, really simple. When you target retail, you are going to need to get barcodes for your products, and you're going to need 2 of them. So the first barcode you're going to need is a barcode for the single item. And if I give you an example, if you go into Boots the Chemist and you buy a nail varnish, when you turn that bottle upside down, there's a barcode on the bottom. When you take that item to the till and it's scanned, it brings up information about that individual item, like the price, for instance. So that's what an individual item barcode's for. It's for use within the store, and it holds data about that individual item. Now, the second barcode that you're going to need is for the outer case that belongs to that product. And if you remember back to the terminology, we're going to pack maybe 6 of these Radiant cleansers into a box to help it move through the retail supply chain. So an example of what the outer case barcode is going to do is when your manufacturer has produced a run of Radiant cleansers, they pack them into the outer cases, they pop them on pallets, and they deliver them to your warehouse. And your warehouse want to receive that stock and book it onto their computer system. So to do that, they scan the barcode on the outer case. And what pops up on the screen in front of them is dynamic cleanser, 6 of them in the box, and the stock code. So the barcode on your outer case packaging contains data about what's in that box and is only used in the retail supply chain. So hopefully that's clear. 2 barcodes, 1 on the individual item, which holds data about that item and is only used in the store, and 1 barcode for the outer case, which is only used in the retail supply chain and holds data about what's in that box. Now, one of the other questions I get asked loads about barcodes is, should you set them up straight away? And my answer to that is yes, you should. And there's a couple of reasons for that. If you get your barcode set up as you unroll and unveil new and develop new products, then you can get those barcodes built in to your design of labels and bottles and packaging. And to include them at that stage is much more cost effective, and it looks so much neater than having to add them manually at a later stage. If you don't include them at design stage and at manufacture stage, then if you get an opportunity to get into retail, you've got an awful lot of reworking to do, which might delay your ability to get into that retailer. You're going to have to pay to have barcodes printed on labels, and then you're going to have to pay to have those labels hand applied to your products. And hand applied labels never look that neat. So if you can avoid it, and you can get your barcodes set up from the initial concept design stage of your products, I would always recommend that. There are some retailers who will ask you to use their own barcode. And examples of that in the UK, I think, would be Debenhams, I think Marks and Spencer's, I think Next. But the number of retailers who expect you to have your barcode set up is far greater. And you're talking the likes of Boots, Superdrug, Sainsbury's, the really big boys out there expect you to have the barcode set up, which is another reason to get them set up as soon as you can. If you then get into a store where they do give you a barcode, then you can hand rework those small quantities, but that's a much more cost-effective way to go. Where do you get barcodes from is another question I get asked a lot. I'll always recommend GS1. They're the absolute world leader on barcodes. Their barcodes are recognised by retailers worldwide, so you'll never have a problem with them. They charge an annual fee for so many barcodes. They provide a web portal that you can manage your barcodes through, plus quite a good customer service. But they are quite expensive for the smaller brands. And if you just need one or two barcodes, then you can go to other companies. I've popped one here on the slide for you, one that some of my brands have used, which is Get a Barcode. Good name. But there you literally pay to get one or two barcodes or just a couple. So it is much more cost effective, but the decision on which one to use, GS1 or Get a Barcode, will be up to you depending on where your brand is now and where you're planning to go. Okay, so let's rattle on through batch codes. So the purpose of a batch code, and you need to be on top of this, is to ensure the identification of certain batches of your cosmetic products or your beauty product throughout the supply chain, and that's in particular in the case of a product recall. Now, product recalls are rare, but I've done a massive one in my past. An exceptionally large brand who was selling a very well-known product into 6 or 7 major retailers had a dreadful batch which had some quite horrid results on people, and we literally had to work out exactly what date that batch had gone into every single retailer and do a full UK-wide store recall. So in that case, recording those batch codes was really, really important. So you need to get on top of your batch code. Your manufacturer will know all about this, and this is why when you target retail, you need to get a good manufacturer to work with. And your warehouse will know how to track and trace your batch codes through. And so talk to them when you go and negotiate with them, and talk to them when you build that contract with them, because these are the guys with the expertise. So use them. You just need to be aware that you do need a batch code. It's a legal requirement to display a batch code on the product itself and on the packaging. But if your product's a little bit small, just on the packaging will do. But you need to sort of get on top of that and be aware of it and make sure you're working with your manufacturer and your warehouse to help you with it. There's a link at the bottom of the page there to sort of a website which can give you some more information if you are interested in investigating that in a little more detail. Shelf life, another piece of data that you need to be aware of. It's really important to understand the shelf life of your products. Now, there's not really any sort of hard and fast rules and regulations on this, but having a shelf life of around 30 months on a product seems to be the industry requirement. And the reason you need to get to grips with shelf life if you're targeting retailers is because retailers have quite strict rules about the length of the shelf life that's required on a product when they buy it and put it on their shelves. So, for instance, Boots don't want to buy a load of products off you guys with 1 month's shelf life, because by the time they've got it into their central warehouse and then out to their stores, that month has gone and that product's not saleable anymore. So the other reason that being aware of shelf life is important is, even if you're not even considering targeting retail, it's really important just for you, because you want to monitor the sell-through of your stock. If you're starting to see that you've got stock where the shelf life is diminishing, then you need to be able to recognise that and prioritise those sales. The worst thing that can happen to a beauty brand is that you end up with stock that you've got to discount, that you've got to sell off in bulk to a discounter because the shelf life's running low, or even worse than that, because you've got no idea about shelf lives. You've actually let the product go out of date and you're going to have to pay somebody to come and collect it and destroy it for you. So shelf lives, do try and get on top of them. Product dimensions. I can hear you all saying, seriously, do I really need to get on top of this? Yes, you do. You just need to know the unit dimensions and your outer case dimensions. And within beauty, dimensions are always in millimetres, and they're always expressed length times width times height, and they're always in grams. And in front of you on the screen, you can just see a couple of unit dimensions and outer case dimensions there as an example. Now, the reason that it's important that you get on top of those dimensions is because it's really useful when you're discussing and negotiating with retailers in meetings. Because when you're talking to a retailer and they're interested in your stock, what they're thinking at that time is, hey, how does it sit on my shelves? What's it going to look like next to that brand? How am I going to fit it in with that brand and that brand? How much space do I need to give them? So if you've got that kind of information to hand, you can actually start to have a really positive talk about it there and then, which is a really, really useful thing to be able to do. And if you're not even thinking of targeting retail, then just having those product dimensions is still useful, because it means you can start to do some modelling of distribution costs for your trade orders or your B2C orders, your web orders. So good practice just to get that sort of data recorded. Palette specifications. Now again, this is really key. If you're going to go into retail, you've got to get a grip of how your products are going to stack on a palette. And your manufacturer will help you with this. You don't need to know how to work out a palette specification. They will tell you what the palette specifications are. You just need to ask them for it. And the palette specification always looks like what you're seeing on the screen at the moment. So it's made up of 3 different parts. One part, which is the top part here you're looking at, shows how many outer cases are on a palette layer and shows how that palette layer is made up. Then you get the 3D view, which is your full palette, what it looks like when it's finished. And then you get all the little details there on the right-hand side, which tell you things like how many outer cases are on a palette, how many layers are on a palette, the total weight. So again, you don't need to be able to work this out. You just need to ask your manufacturer to supply them to you, so you've got that data. And the data is really important, again, when you're talking to retailers. When you're talking to retailers and negotiating, both parties are after different things, but what you guys want is to go into that negotiation to try and get MOQs, or minimum order quantities, which help to keep your warehousing and transport costs down. So you want to negotiate the best MOQs for that, and in the best situation possible would be to negotiate a full pallet quantity minimum order level, because that's the most best as far as costs go. So if you've got your pallet spec, then you know what a full pallet quantity is and you can start to negotiate. Realistically, as a new brand to a retailer, they're probably not going to go for that straight away, but it's something to push for. So maybe you could try and get a minimum order quantity of a full layer quantity. And again, you've got that pallet spec in front of you, so you know what that quantity is, so you can negotiate powerfully. What's really important is you never ever have a minimum order quantity that's less than a full outer case, because as we discussed at the beginning, single units do not move well through the retail supply chain. Okay, last bit in this section is environmental details. Something that you need to keep on record and be aware of. Retailers are becoming more and more and more concerned with this, and they're becoming really, really focused on this. Most retailers have ethical codes of conduct, environmental targets that they've set and that they publish the results for. So they're really focused on working with brands that mirror those ethical codes and those standards and those environmental issues that they're working towards. So they're going to be really interested to hear this from you guys. And I guess for most of you out there, your environmental impact is actually really key to your brand, to the story behind your brand and the reason that you're doing what you're doing. So be proud of it and talk about it in those retailer meetings. The things that they might be interested to know in the data that you can collect is maybe to do with packaging. So how much of your packaging is recycled? How much of your cardboard, your glass, your plastic? Get those statistics from your manufacturer and your packaging manufacturer and get those recorded so that you can be very proud and very vocal about them. It will impress a retailer. So all of that number crunching, data gathering, all of that, is it going to bring some value to your business? And the answer is it is. It's going to give you some really, really huge confidence. If you've got all your inventory data lined up in a spreadsheet, then when you're in a pitch to a retailer or a conversation with a retailer, you're absolutely ready to answer whatever question they ask you about your inventory. There's going to be no Dragon's Den moments for you. If they ask you a question, you can give them an answer. And it may be that you've got the laptop out in front of you, but that's fine. You're still going to be able to give them an answer. So you can go into that pitch and that discussion and that negotiation with real confidence that you understand your inventory. We just mentioned that if you're negotiating for minimum order quantities, understanding your data, your pallet specs, is going to put you in a really powerful and controlling position to go into that negotiation. And I think more importantly is that if you've got this inventory management under control, then when you're sitting in front of a retailer, they're going to think you are so professional. They're going to think that you really know what you're doing, that you're very experienced, that you've come to the meeting with all the data you know they need, and that's really going to be extremely useful for you guys, because when you pitch to a retailer, you're pitching alongside loads of big brands, and they may have more money, they may be employing a specialist pitch person to do their pitch for them. So anything you can do to make yourself stand out and look like you really know what you're doing is going to be really, really helpful. Now, before I just move on to the second part of the presentation, which is much shorter, I can assure you, I do have a inventory management spreadsheet which you can populate with all this kind of data that we've talked about. And I also have a batch code and shelf life management tool, which is again another spreadsheet. They're very basic. And I use them with startup brands that I work with within the consultancy. But I'd be happy, if anybody wants to contact me at the end of the presentation, to email those out to you free of charge. You might want to use them within your business, or you might want to pinch bits from them for your business. But they're there as a resource for you if you'd like me to send them out. So just email me at the end. Okay, second part of seminar, much, much shorter. So systemizing your inventory management. So we're going back to looking at overseeing and controlling your ordering and your storage now. So what are the options that are available to you? Well, you've got two options. First of all, you can systemize your inventory management by using an Excel spreadsheet. or an Excel spreadsheet program that you pay somebody to do a little bit of work on, which can manage, you know, your reordering levels and set triggers and things like that. Your second option is to invest in inventory management software. Now, the decision about which way you want to do this is going to be very, very personal to your brand and your business. And it's really going to depend on where your business is now, where your business is going, what your aspirations are, how many are in your team, what your budget is, what your resources are. But it will be a very, very personal decision. But if we look at the Excel spreadsheet side, I can give you a couple of examples of brands that I've worked with who use this method. So I've got one brand that I work with who's a perfume brand. They've got over 120 product lines in their inventory. They're supplying into a very major UK chemist chain. They also have their own web shop. And they manage their entire inventory management on a very basic spreadsheet. They've not even programmed in reorder levels or anything like that. And they're a two-man team. So they manage everything on an Excel spreadsheet. Another brand that I work with is a male grooming brand, about 10 product lines. They go into one of the major supermarkets. They distribute into the US and they sell online. They again manage their whole inventory management through an Excel spreadsheet, but they have paid an expert to come in and just tweak it and add little bits so that it's a little bit more automated and a little bit more useful. On the inventory management software side, this is always going to be more expensive than managing it through an Excel spreadsheet or even an Excel spreadsheet program that you've adapted. It's a big investment and there are a lot of options available to you that will take a lot of time to research to decide which ones you think are best for you. And there are literally hundreds on the market. I mean, there's, to name a few, ASC, SysPro, TradeGecko, Shipwire. I could go on and on and on. My gut suggests to me that investing in inventory management software is something that you may want to do later, when your brand is making real money, when you are supplying into a lot of retailers and you have quite a few products within your range. That's when you maybe need to look at investing in something which helps to manage that process a little better than just a spreadsheet. Now, I've worked with a brand, a male grooming brand again, who go into all the major retailers. They invested 13 years ago in ASC, and they think it's absolutely wonderful, and they've had a really good experience with it. And in fact, Jane from the company has provided me with some details and some recommendations about why they value it. And if anybody's interested in seeing those, they can email me again at the end of the program, and I'll forward those on to you. So systemizing inventory management, it has to be done. It definitely has to be done. You must do it some way, but the way you choose to do it is really a very personal business choice, and it really will depend on where you are and where you're going. So if you want more details, contact me, but that's just a general overview there of the options that are available to you. It's worth doing. In fact, it's an absolute must to do it, and we touched on this right back at the beginning of the presentation. If you've got a really strong inventory management system that looks after your stock in warehouse, your lead times, your reorder quotes, that sends you triggers so that you can place reorders, if you've got a really good system for that, then you can delegate that task out. You can teach someone else to manage that for you and free you up from that. That's going to create loads of time for you to work on what you're really good at and what you really enjoy. But there's another aspect to having a really good inventory management system that people often forget, And it's actually that it can help you provide a really high level of customer service for your customer and really help you to manage that retailer relationship effectively. Retailer relationships are really, really two-way discussions all the time. And so if you can be talking to your retailer, if you're running low of an item, you're telling them about that so that they can make sure that they think that you're telling them to prioritize their orders and that you're giving them the priority of the stock. If you're out of stock, make sure that you know how long it's going to take. Talk to them about it. Make sure they're up to date. If you've got new lines coming in, make sure the retailer's the first one you talk to about. Tell them when it's coming into warehouse, how quickly they can get it. So having that system isn't just about making an impact on you, it can also have a real impact on your relationship with your customer itself. That's it. Gosh, I do hope there was an awful lot of information in there, and I do hope that you've been able to take in as much as possible. I mean, I can send out the slides, and I'm sure Lorraine is going to send some stuff on to the guys who are here as well. But to finish off, as part of Zest Consulting, I do a lot of work with beauty brands, and one of the first things that a lot of them ask me to do is the logistics MOT. And this is normally a day to half a day, and it costs, £300, £400. But I want to just twist that round a little bit and change it so it suits you guys. So I'd be happy to look at doing maybe like a 2-hour Skype session with any of you. We can do a complete overview of your logistics, where it is now, where you want to go, or we could do a really intensive session on one specific issue that could be anything to do with logistics, from this inventory management to packaging to designing gifts, e-commerce logistics, retail logistics, or if you're looking at exports, we can have a look at that. And I can wing that all together with loads of notes that we'll go through and an action plan which I'll send out to you afterwards, and we can do that all together for £150. So email me after if you're interested in that. And there we go. I know Lorraine is going to send these out, but they're my contact details. It's been an absolute pleasure. I do hope you've enjoyed it and that you've got something out of it. And I'm going to hand back to Lorraine now.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Rachel. You managed to make inventory management really sexy and interesting. So I hope everyone's paid attention. I learnt loads about, getting everything ready for your pallets and barcodes and scaling up. I mean, fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
We've got lots of questions. And if you want to ask Rachel your question, you've got 17 minutes to do so, and it is first come, first serve, and we've had loads of questions already. So you can see the little question mark, which should be on the, God, I never know which side it is. That side I'm going to go with. It should be up there. Click on it, and that should take you through to the Q&A box, so you can ask your questions there, and we'll be able to manage it a bit better. Let's see. Let's start with just a very basic question, which came in from a few people while you were talking. What does EDT stand for?
Oh my goodness. Oh, the toilet.
Right, there you go. I didn't know if it was estimated delivery times. I thought I better not jump in there and give them the wrong acronym.
No, it just comes in the under the umbrella of aftershaves, perfumes, and EDTs, eau de toilette.
There you go. You can tell that Rachel's really into the industry because she's down with the lingo. The other question I wanted to ask you.
I forget to tell people what it really means, so there you go.
The other question I wanted to ask before we get started with everyone else's questions is, a lot of the people watching today are all over the world. I mean, we've got people here in the UK, all over Europe. We've got people all over North America joining us for the webinar. Some in Asia. Why are you guys awake? We've got quite a few people in New Zealand I can see on the call as well. So obviously everyone's approaching this from a different sort of global perspective. Yeah. Most of the people who follow us are artisan manufacturers, and they create their own products at home. So at what stage would you recommend that someone starts to approach retailers when they're first starting out with their business?
Okay. You need to, when you consider going to retailers, there are certain things that they're looking at, and in its most basic one, you have retail history. So can you show the volumes that you're generating? Can you show the marketing, etc.? But from a logistics point of view, what they're really, really wanting to see is that you can cope with the demand and you can cope with the logistics. Because retailers order in bulk. That's how they do it. They order it and they take it into their central DCs, and then they distribute it out to their stores in smaller quantities. And sometimes they could be asking for several pallets of each of your stock lines. So they need to know that you can cope with that volume. So I think before you approach a retailer, you need to have done some homework about who's going to be your manufacturer and who's going to take that over from you, and who is going to be your warehouse. You don't necessarily need to be with them yet, but you need to be looking at who you can use. And just networking with fellow sort of beauty entrepreneurs will give you the best manufacturers and the best warehouses that are available, or speaking to someone like me who can help you with that. So you just need to show that you can handle that volume and that you're ready for it.
Okay, yes, that makes perfect sense. And actually that ties in perfectly to a question that's come in from Joanna here, who's just launched her lovely Mallow White company. She says, when do you suggest to start with a manufacturer? Because of course a lot of people who follow us make their products at home. Sometimes they make them fresh to order even. So when we're talking pallets, I mean, that is just beyond the scope of some people, because that's not their business model, and that's totally cool because that's how they want to run their business, and that's fine. Joanna says, how many orders or products do you need to create before it becomes cost effective? Do they have minimum orders?
Yes, they do. They will have minimum orders, and you need to work with them to negotiate those minimum orders, and you need to try and have some control over that. What can happen quite often is artisan brands who've targeted retail can be slightly overwhelmed when a retailer comes back and says yes to them, and they can be slightly overwhelmed by that and slightly and get a little carried away, and their business brain goes out of the window and they just say yes, yes, yes. And it's important just to take some time. That retailer wants you, so just take your time and talk to them. Make sure you've got the minimum orders right. Make sure you've got the rates, the charges, the costs to cover your logistics. So just take the time, never rush in. Talk to your warehouse, talk to your manufacturer, talk to the retailer, and make sure everything irons out.
Okay, I think we might be getting a little bit of feedback on the line. So do you want to try your headphones, and hopefully that will take care of it? And let us know, guys, if you're still getting any feedback. Just ping me a message in the chat box, because I'm reading everything you're writing up there. Let's see. Okay, we've had a few more questions come in. Oh yeah, here's Callie in California. Hi, Callie. She asks, how can you get manufacturers to take you seriously when you approach them? And when you approach a manufacturer to mass produce, do we think about packaging and codes for the UK, for Europe, for Asia, for Australia, etc.? I mean, should you be thinking global from the start? Because obviously you talked about, get your barcodes embedded straight away, which is a very sensible thing to do if you think you'll scale up in the future. Should you be thinking global from day one? Rachel, we can't hear you anymore. Unfortunately, try unplugging your headphones again, and hopefully we'll be able to get you back into the Q&A. Not to worry, these things always happen with webinars. Last year, I even lost a presenter or two a couple of times, so don't worry, we've been there, we've done that, and we'll try and get Rachel back. No, we still can't hear you. Want to try and hit the reload? She's hit the reload button, so she'll hopefully be back soon, and then we'll be able to answer Callie's question. Don't worry, guys, we will get this show back on the road, because we've got another 11 minutes worth of questions. So please keep them coming in the chat box, and I hope that you've enjoyed everything that you've heard this evening so far. Right, let's see. And I think Rachel's back, and here she is again. Sorry about that, guys. Not to worry, Rachel's back. I told you technology is always our friend. So do you want to try and answer that question again from Callie about how to approach manufacturers?
Yeah. Okay, so with regards to going global from the start, my advice would be don't. From experience working with a number of brands for a long time, those that have been successful when they've gone to export have had a really strong base in the UK first, or in their own country first. Getting manufacturers to take you seriously can be quite difficult when you are starting out, because they have minimum order quantities that they want you to manufacture. Now, there are some out there who will go for much smaller quantities. Again, you just need to network or ask the right people, and they'll signpost you to the companies and manufacturers that will do that. But getting a good relationship with a manufacturer is really important. Make them believe in your product. Make them believe in your brand. Make them understand what plans you've got, and really spend time with them. Everything in this business is about relationships. And if people believe in what you do, they might take you on even though you're not quite at the level that you want, because they believe in where you're going.
Okay, fantastic answer. All about relationships, and that goes with most things in business, really, doesn't it? Great question from Mariana, which is something that I'd written down as well as you were talking. You talked about retailers often wanting a minimum 30-month shelf life. Now, as pretty much everyone on this call probably was thinking, my products don't last for 30 months, because with natural and organic products, they often use more sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? They use fewer preservatives, less harsh preservatives, so that obviously reduces the shelf life. And often for products, you might be looking for a lotion or a cream, you might be looking at a year. Now, have you worked with retailers before who will accept smaller artisan natural brands, given the huge growth in global natural and organic personal care demand?
Yeah, it's a great question. The answer is, again, it's all about approaching retailers who've got the same values as you as a brand, and making them believe in your product. There is a massive growth in this area, so I think you're probably going to see those sorts of regulations changing. And like I say, there's nothing really legally binding there. It's just what shops like to see. They like to be able to have products and sell them for a while. But I think that will start to change. Research the retailers you want to work with, and then make them aware of the situation, but make them believe why your product's still worth buying and listing.
Yes, be passionate about what you do, and thankfully I think everyone here is pretty passionate, because that's how they got into the industry in the first place. Great question here from Gabriella. She says, do you need barcodes even if you're not targeting retailers? Do you need them as a startup business?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. If you're going to only sell online, so through your web shop, or you're going to sell into independent retailers, sort of boutiques, places like that, then you may not need to have them. You certainly won't need them if you're just going to sell on your web shop. It depends when you go into independents, whether they are a chain of independents and whether they then have a central warehouse. So you just need to ask the questions. If you're literally delivering product to a shop and they're putting it on the shelf, I don't think you need a barcode, but talk to them, because the barcode includes the price. So just talk to people, but definitely to use them just for web shops.
Okay, good advice. Okay, so a question here from Shauna. She says, do batch codes need to follow any particular format, or can you do whatever you want?
There is a standard type of batch code called a Julian batch code, and lots of manufacturers and contract packers use that. It's made up of the day within the year that it was packed, so like the 321st day of 2015 or something like that. So there is a format, and you can look at that online. I would probably use something like that if you're looking at retail, because it's recognised and it will make you look professional. If you're just looking after batches for your web shop and independent traders, then you can have whatever you want. The trick is that it's just got to be recognisable, so that if there's ever a need to recall, you know where that batch went. You can tell that shop to send it back to you.
Okay. All right, question from Cassia, and there's loads of questions coming in, so I'm sorry if we don't get to them all, but we'll try and cover as many as we can in the next 5 minutes. Cassia says, what are your thoughts on CraftyBase for manufacturing and inventory management? I don't know if you've used this software package before, but if you have, do you know it? What do you think of it?
I don't know that one at all. I'm going to be completely honest, but I tell you what, I'm writing it down so that I can go and learn about it. Yeah, I'm not aware of that.
There you go. Well, as you said, there were lots of different software packages around, so obviously you can't know all of them, which would
I don't know that one. I'm sorry.
Don't worry. Let's see, we've got a question here from Corinne. She says, can a handmade brand still upscale to retailers? Doesn't outsourcing to a manufacturer take that niche and artisan feel away from the overall brand?
Handing your manufacturer over to the manufacturing of your product over to a manufacturer is really difficult. It's like handing over your logistics to a warehouse. You feel like you lose the control. But if you're going to scale up and target retail, you don't have an option. You're going to have to address that, and you're going to have to get over that and sort of deal with it. But I come back again to, it's about researching the manufacturers that already produce products like yours, and it's looking for warehouses who manage the logistics for brands like yours, because they're really used to what you want. They're going to understand when you talk to them and you go there and say, this is my baby and you've got to look after it. They're going to get that and they're going to understand that. So take the time to choose the right people to work with, and they won't let you down. But again, it's always that relationship between the manufacturer and your warehouse. Make them believe in you so that they look after you.
Yes. Awesome. And tying into that, here's a question from Rachel, another Rachel, who says, is manufacturing in-house then not an option at all, in your opinion? If you're going to target retail, if you're going to target major retailers, so supermarkets, national chemist chains, things like that, you would find it extremely difficult unless you had your own factory, because these guys won't wait. When you get into a retailer, they give you an order on day 1 and they expect you to deliver it on day 3. So they give you an order on Monday, they want it in their warehouse on Wednesday. So unless you've got that volume just sitting in your garage, which I don't think you could have, you'll find it very, very difficult. So if it's retail you're after, then you are going to have to probably either have your own warehouse and your own manufacturer, or contract it out to somebody else, I'm afraid. Okay, that makes sense. If you've got to produce thousands of units quickly, and we've seen lots of people in the Skincare Entrepreneur Mastermind group on Facebook, my networking group. If you're not in it, come and join us. Skincare Entrepreneur Mastermind, go type it into Facebook. We've seen lots of people have to provide like 25,000 lotions for a beauty box, and then they get their neighbours involved and their families, and there are pallets and pallets and pallets in the back garden, and it gets really overwhelming, and you wouldn't be able to do that on a weekly basis, would you? Last question, and this one's from Lou, or Stella. Is it necessary to have a functioning website ready and up and running before you even think about approaching a manufacturer or a retailer? I don't think it's necessary, but I would highly, highly recommend it. I think that's one of the first things you need to do when you're setting up your beauty brand, full stop, because it's the way that you're going to launch your brand in front of the public. It's how you're going to get your message out there. And what retailers will want to see is evidence that your products are selling and that people are that there's some buzz, there's some energy around your product. So having a website that's generating that kind of traffic, that kind of interest, is really, really good thing to do. So I don't think it's absolutely necessary, but whatever stage you're at in developing your beauty brand, I think you should have a website that's up and running and active
all the time.
Yeah, fair enough. It's your calling card to the outside world, right? It's the first thing people go and look for. They'll go and Google you to see if you have a website. And let's be fair, when we Google companies and we can't find them online, we sort of think, are they legitimate? Are they real? You know, so it is a good, I think.
Absolutely.
A good thing. Right, it's 9 o'clock here in the UK, and I'm afraid that means it's the end of the webinar. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed it. I know I have. I've learned loads from Rachel. So thank you very much, Rachel, for your time. It has been an absolute pleasure welcoming you onto the webinar.
It's been a pleasure here. If anybody's still got questions that aren't answered, then you've got my email address. You just drop me a note and I'll come back to you as soon as I can.
Excellent. We're going to send out the replay either tomorrow or the day after, so keep watching your inbox, and if you use Gmail, watch your promotions tab, because that's the black hole of email in the online world. And we'll be sending out, hopefully, Rachel's spreadsheets with that, if Rachel's okay with that, because I think everyone...
I'll forward them on, yeah, good idea, good idea.
And also, hopefully, the slides, and Rachel's contact details. So thank you very much. Remember, this week, we open enrollment for the International Organic Skincare Entrepreneur Program. This is the last time it's going to be available at this low price, so hope you guys will be able to join us if you're new to Formula Botanica. And I hope to see you for the next webinar in the series, which will be in 2 weeks' time. We'll send out all the information soon, and hope to see you soon. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye.
Thank you, guys. See you.